Welcome to Chemo Coffee Talk, your weekly dose of resilience, inspiration, and a whole lot of heart. I'm Carly Fouth, a triple-negative breast cancer survivor who started this podcast right from my chemo chair, and now I'm coming to you straight from my kitchen. Whether you're fighting the fight yourself, supporting a loved one, or just here for a little encouragement, you're in the right place. Every week, we'll chat with my cancer-fighting buddies, caregivers, and experts, sharing stories that are real, raw, and uplifting. So grab your favorite mug, brew up some resilience, and let's dive into a conversation filled with humor, hope, and the unstoppable human spirit. I'm committed to continuing this podcast to reach and help as many people as possible. And any kind of support makes a huge difference. So subscribe and share it with friends. Your support keeps me going and helps me spread hope even further. Thanks for listening. Today, I am beyond excited to welcome a true legend to the podcast, Shannon Miller. You probably know her as the most decorated U.S. Olympic gymnast of all time, but her impact goes far beyond the gymnastics world. As a 7-time Olympic medalist, Shannon inspired millions with her dedication, perseverance, and unmatched drive. But her greatest challenge came off the mat when she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Instead of letting it define her, she used her battle as a platform to empower women to prioritize their health and well-being. Through her advocacy, speaking engagements, and health initiatives, she continues to champion the importance of taking control of your health, mind, body, and spirit. So I cannot wait to dive into her journey today and her mission and the lessons that we can all take from her incredible story. So welcome, Shannon. Welcome to Chemo Coffee Talk.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this talk. It's so important for people.
Yeah, I really like to try to get people to talk about it to kind of take away a little bit of the fear. It's always scary, as you and I know. But I think sometimes the more you can talk about things, you kind of take your power back a little bit. So I want to talk to you about your mission because I love your mission. It's all about empowering women to prioritize their health. So how did your own ovarian cancer diagnosis shift or reinforce that mission?
So it's interesting. A lot of people think that I either started on this journey of kind of being an advocate for women's health and fitness from my Olympic days, or that I came to this journey through my cancer diagnosis. And really, it kind of happened in between those two things. I retired from gymnastics at the ripe old age of 19. Had a lot to kind of figure out. What was I going to do with my life? What was I passionate about outside of gymnastics? You know, who am I without being a gymnast? And so I went through some of these years of really not being the healthiest. It wasn't unhealthy, but in gymnastics, I ate 6 full meals a day because of the calories I was expending. So when I stopped gymnastics and I wasn't doing any kind of fitness and kept eating those 6 meals a day, that math didn't quite work. And so, you know, there was that portion. There was just kind of feeling fatigued all the time and thinking, this can't be right. If I used to train 40 hours a week plus a full schedule with school, and now I'm tired after a few classes, you know, I'm just not staying up with it. And so I started to do a deeper dive into health and wellness and what are the things that I could do to just get healthy. And as I did, I just started thinking about so many women that I knew all around me that put their health on the back burner to take care of kids. You know, all their kids would get to their doctor's appointments, but they wouldn't because they didn't have time. They're so busy taking care of everyone and everything else that they weren't focused on their health. And so I kind of jumped in and just really enjoyed this journey. I launched my company devoted to health and fitness in 2010, the summer of 2010. I was hosting a radio show at that time, interviewing nurses and physicians and health experts on all these different health topics. So I was really enjoying just the subject matter. And it was not long after that I was diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer. And I think to your point, that's when the priority, it's not that there was a massive shift. I was focused on health and wellness, but all of a sudden I realized I was dabbling in my own health and wellness. I was doing enough to think that I was doing the right stuff. but I wasn't really focused on it. And there's nothing like a cancer diagnosis to really, really focus your priorities and help you understand that health is kind of the foundation for everything that we want to do and be. And I had to wrap my mind around this idea that focusing on my own health, making time for my own health and fitness was not a selfish act. That trying to heal during and after chemotherapy, that was not selfish. I was trying to get as healthy as I could to be there for my son, to be there for all of those people that were depending on me. And if we don't have our health, we can't be there for them, much less for all the things that we want to do and be. And so I now go in with that mentality to each day. And I'm sure we'll talk about kind of how we carve days up and what we focus on. But that's the mentality that I go into with each day. So when I go to skip a workout or, I'm going to maybe not have as much sleep tonight, I don't. I really stop myself in my tracks and say, no, this is important. It's important to do, and it's important to focus on every single day. Now, are there days it's not going to happen, especially when you're going through treatments? Absolutely. But part of health is knowing kind of when you do need to rest over doing something else. And so you learn that as you go. But for me, the focus and priorities has shifted, and I'm excited that I've continued to keep that priority and that focus.
I love that. And I love that you brought up the fact that it's not selfish to take care of yourself, because I think talking to women, especially when I'm working with the general public or with a cancer patient, a lot of women especially think that they don't deserve the time, whether or not they want to admit that. But I think that's like a deep-seated belief, and to help people get past that is so important, and to realize that if you don't take the time, no one's going to give it to you, but it's your right to take it because you need to be there to take care of everyone else, like you said. So I really love that you said that.
Well, and what I found over time is, I used to think that it was, I think, again, I didn't really acknowledge it as being selfish, but I think in the back of my mind, I kind of felt that way. Oh, but then I'm not here for the kids, or, oh, I'm not getting X, Y, and Z done. But when I started to focus on my health, and I just go to work out, I have a standard time and I go. And what I found was both my kids, they like to go with me. They're and both of them enjoy going and working out or going and being physically active. And I think we forget in this idea of us being selfish, we forget that we are leaders. We are leading our family. We are setting the example for others, whether it's our coworkers, our neighbors, our kids, our parents. And so when we focus on our health, not only is it good for us, but other people around us are inspired to focus on their health.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about mindset, because that plays a huge role in being able to stay consistent, leading a healthy lifestyle. And especially during a cancer diagnosis, you really need to kind of work on the mindset just as much as you do the physical work. So how do you think, I mean, as an Olympian and with all your training in gymnastics, you're no stranger to discipline and perseverance. So how do you think that athletic mindset helped you navigate your cancer journey?
So it's interesting. So I went into a doctor's appointment. I admit, one that I almost canceled and postponed, but I went in, and it was that morning in late 2010 that I found out I had baseball-sized cyst on my left ovary. And that's when you go into this whirlwind of tests and scans, and it's the wait and observe, which is excruciating. We all know that.
The worst.
And so I kind of went from just that spinning world of what's going on to waking up from surgery in January of 2011 to hear that, yes, it was cancer. It was a rare form of ovarian cancer, but they had caught it early. It was a couple weeks later they found out that it was a higher grade malignancy than they originally thought. I would need to go through this pretty aggressive chemotherapy regimen. And I think at that point, that's when I had this shift in my mentality. I had gone from the weeks of wait and observe, where there's just so many questions and there's so few answers. And it's not anyone's fault. There just wasn't enough data. There wasn't enough information until they did surgery. And then after that, understanding, my oncologist was very direct, which I loved. Hey, this is going to be, there's all kinds of, as we know, different forms of chemo. This was going to be a kind of a hit 'em hard, hit 'em fast chemo. And I need you to get through it without stopping. That was the goal. And I think hearing that, like, okay, I have a set goal. That brought me back to that competitive mindset I knew so well through sport. And so I was focused on just getting through without stopping. I couldn't do much physically after the surgery. I wasn't even allowed to hold my son for a month after surgery. But I thought, okay, well, I can get enough protein. I can start working on hydration, those things. And then I thought about mindset. And I thought, gosh, any athlete will tell you the mindset in sport is so important. Most athletes will tell you it's far more important than the physical aspect. And I thought it has to be in life and in health and in getting through something like this. And so I really did work on my mindset, and my faith is first and foremost. And then there was this other layer of kind of getting in the right positive mindset as much as possible. But I will tell you, it was trying. Mm-hmm. It was the most humbling and the hardest thing I've ever had to do was chemotherapy. And even just getting through that first week when I was put back in the hospital because I couldn't keep anything down, which was even before losing my hair, was before the neuropathy. And just that first week, I realized how challenging it was really going to be, and that I really was going to have to continue to tackle that mindset. And I always point out that mindset isn't about pasting a smile on your face and pretending that you're happy. That's not a positive mindset. A positive mindset is desperately looking for something constructive to focus on. And so for me, it was setting those goals for myself. It wasn't about a gold medal. It was about, okay, can I wake up? And most days it was, can I wake up, get dressed, and walk 2 times around the dining room table? Can I do that today? And when I did that, I kind of had this inner celebration of, okay, I checked that box. I did that today. And we have to be okay with changing what we feel are those goals for ourselves. And I know there's, different therapies. My father-in-law was going through chemo at the same time as I was, and he was playing 18 holes of golf. And I was so jealous. Like, I can barely get out of bed and he's playing 18 holes of golf. But we also kind of bonded over that. I had neuropathy on my hands. He had it in his feet. He had all this energy and was never nauseous. I was always nauseous, but I could help him with other things. So you find that bond and that shared experience. But you also, I think, when we do things like this podcast, like talking about our experiences, we are reminded that we're not in this alone. And I think that side of the mental part is so important. Just acknowledging and finding out and knowing that you are not in this alone.
Right. And I remember the days of chemo. I mean, I'm sure you did too. I had all the support in the world, but there are still those days where no matter how many people have their hands on your back, you still feel so lonely. So that's why, like you said, I think it's really important on those days to be able to listen to people who have been through it, talk about it, people who have made it to the other side. And I feel like there's a lot of strength that can be gained from hearing about other people's experiences and finding the humor in it too. I mean, we were just chuckling about some of the things. There are funny moments. You have to, it's either laugh or cry, and I'd always choose to laugh. So let's talk about some of those women who may be listening and are putting their health on the back burner, because there are a lot of women like that for the reasons we talked about. So what advice would you give to someone who is hesitant right now to prioritize their well-being, whether it's through fitness, screening, self-care, whatever it is? What's one thing maybe that they could do today to kind of get out of that mindset, that rut?
There's so many things. I will tell you, I had one conversation. I interviewed a cardiologist years and years ago, and it has stuck with me to this day whenever I am going to put my health on the back burner for any reason. He said, I don't understand something. When we get up in the morning and we have a big day ahead and we have lots of things to do and we've got a presentation due and we've got to get the kids to school and we've got to do all these things, you don't get to the end of the day and think, gosh, I just really didn't have any time today, but, I'm not going to have time this week. Next week, I'll brush my teeth. No, you're going to do it twice a day, every single day. You might even floss. Yep. And then he went on and he said, you don't get up one day and have a busy day and think, work is so busy right now. Everything's going on with the family, kids' activities, all these things. And, next quarter, I'm going to have a little bit more time. Things will slow down a little bit. So next quarter, I'm going to eat. Right. No, you're going to eat. You're going to eat 3 times a day, every single day. And he said, I don't understand why we don't treat fitness the same way. And of course, we can broaden that out to why don't we treat going to the doctor the same way, eating nutritiously the same way. It's not that it takes that much more time, because really when you focus on your health, when you focus on getting enough sleep and getting that physical activity during the day, you're more productive, you're more energized, you think clearly, everything clicks better and faster and more efficiently. So you actually don't lose that much time in the day, but you're focusing on putting your health first where it should be. So I always remember that, and I always think about certainly fitness in that way, but also other parts of my life that way too. And the one thing that I do is I take the emotion out of it. It's not about how I feel that day. It's about what needs to get done. So I write on a list. I mean, it's on my to-do list for the day, for the week. This is what I'm going to do. This is the time that I'm going to do it. And I have that block of times. Again, whether that's physical activity, and not every day, and certainly not during chemo. It wasn't working out 45 minutes a day. It was, okay, 10 minutes of yoga, 10 minutes of a walk. Can I do that, twice a day? Can I walk twice around the dining room table? You have to set it for the appropriateness of what you're going through at that time. Right now, it's 30 to 45 minutes of a workout 4 to 5 days a week. I can manage that. And on those days that I can't get a solid 30 minutes, maybe I'm traveling or maybe I'm stuck at the house, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes in the evening. I do YouTube workouts so that people can have a 10-minute video that they can just do. It is something that's achievable even for the busiest person. And I go back to the cardiologist that said, okay, but why? We have time to brush our teeth and we have time to eat. We have to build that time in if it matters to us. And what could possibly matter more than our health?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that's great advice from that cardiologist. I love that. That's so true. It's just about making the time. And I love how you said too about taking the emotion out of it, because I find myself too somebody whose profession it is to jump up and down for a living. There are days I don't feel like doing it, but I take the emotion out of it and I say, like you said, this is what I do. This is what I need to do. And you think of the bigger picture or your why. So that's really powerful.
Well, and I would say that's critically important when we talk about going to the doctor, because how many women don't go to the doctor out of fear of the unknown, out of just not wanting to get in that paper gown or take the time, or being intimidated. I was someone that was I was intimidated by going to the doctor, and I would completely go in, say, I feel fine, and blank on any questions I meant to ask. And well, then it's another whole year before I go back. So I'm a big advocate of writing your questions down so that doesn't happen. Taking the emotion out in a sense that put it on your schedule, drive yourself over there, walk in the door. Whether that's fitness, whether that's getting to your doctor's appointments, put it on the schedule and just get there. Right?
Yep. And then whatever happens is after that is icing on the cake, but it's getting there. And you know that once you get there, you're not going to just walk out and leave. Something's going to happen and you're going to be able to check that box. Very true. So looking back at your journey, so both as an elite athlete and a cancer survivor, what has been the most powerful lesson you've learned about resilience and self-care?
Oh, goodness. I have so many great memories, and I learned so much about resilience through sport. When people think about the Olympics, they think of oftentimes that gold medal moment, but they forget about the 10,000 times that I fell or failed or made a mistake along the way, and probably far more than 10,000. But that's what I remember, right? The gold medal moments are fantastic, but I remember the journey. I remember the ups and the downs, the injuries, the tough times, the hard days. And I remember the lessons that I learned on those days. And that is, when tough things happen, when you face those challenges, you have a choice. You have a choice to kind of wallow in the disappointment of that failure, or you have the choice to say, okay, I acknowledge that failure. I'm going to learn something from it, and I'm going to move forward with that knowledge. And, every time you fall off the beam, you're relearning that lesson. Every time I fell on the floor exercise, I was relearning that lesson. I broke my elbow. I broke and dislocated my elbow 10 weeks prior to the Olympic trials in 1992. My first opportunity to make an Olympic team. And here I made this humongous mistake. And that was a time I learned a tremendous amount of resiliency and how I could kind of look back and see that that injury forced me into a position where I couldn't train routines like everyone else. I couldn't train the fun skills. I had to do conditioning and stretching. Those were the only things I could do as my arm was healing. But when I got to Olympic trials, I came back as a stronger, more well-rounded athlete than I had ever been before because I had been forced to work on my weaknesses. And so when I think about resiliency, not only do I think about that kind of get back up attitude, how do we find that next forward step, whatever that may be, but also trying desperately to find the blessing, trying desperately to find something constructive in the challenge. And when I went through my cancer diagnosis and treatment, it wasn't about failure. I mean, you don't fail your way into cancer. It's just a challenge that happens. So the resiliency was, what do I do now? I can be really upset that this happened, but that doesn't change anything. It just drains my energy. It drains my emotion. And where that energy and emotion needs to be channeled is, what is my next step? Now, it doesn't happen every day, that takes some effort. And there are days when you're just not going to feel like it and you just need a pity party, and that is okay.
Yeah.
We have to have those real and raw emotions. But then, when you're finished, then you look around and you go, okay, all right, now what's my next forward step?
Yeah, I love that. That's powerful. And I think everyone has the ability to adopt an athlete's mindset, regardless if you've ever been an athlete or not. I think it's something it's nice to read about athletes like yourself or anybody, because it is all about the mindset. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. You could separate that from the actual physical aspect of the sport. It's so powerful, that mind connection.
It is. And I always say, you don't have to wear a leotard to have this mindset. You really don't.
No.
And you don't have to have done sports. It is a mindset. And the more you practice that mindset, the easier it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Everything takes practice. So let's just, as a final question, I just want to touch upon the ovarian cancer. Since you've been a powerful advocate for early detection and awareness. So what is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions about ovarian cancer that you would like people to understand?
Well, I hope it's less of a misconception. There's a couple, and I hope they're less of a misconception now than they were when I was diagnosed. And the first one is that it's an older person's disease, because I've met 19-year-olds that had the same cancer as I did. So there are different types of ovarian cancer, but it is important to remember that, because a lot of times we can't be expected to know every sign and every symptom of every type of cancer, along with heart disease and diabetes and, you name it. But what we can do is listen to our bodies and speak up when something feels off, because we are our own best advocates. We know our bodies better than anyone else, but we have to speak up and let our doctors know. We have to get into those appointments so we have a baseline, so if something does change, they can be aware of it. So I think that was one of the misconceptions for me, is that, that's not one I need to worry about yet.
Yep.
The other misconception is that it's a silent killer. It is not. And I think there's been a lot of work on kind of getting away from that language, because there are specific signs and symptoms. Unfortunately, they can seem very benign. We can write them off as, hey, women's monthly issues, or my body's changing. For me, I had 3 of the 4 primary signs and symptoms of ovarian cancer, and I went in and told my doctor I felt fine. I had completely forgot about the stomach aches I was having in previous weeks, where I was literally doubled over on the floor thinking, it's cramps, or it's dehydration. I had just finished nursing our son. He had just turned a year old. My body's changing. It's wacky. Who knows what's going on? And just went on with my day and kind of forgot about telling my doctor about that. I realized that I had lost about 8 pounds within about a month. But again, I'm losing baby weight. This must be a great thing. And then bloating. I had lost this weight, and yet some of the skirts that I was headed back to work, and sometimes I would zip up my favorite skirt and it wouldn't quite zip. And yet I had lost this weight. And it was kind of one of those moments where you think, well, that's weird. But then you don't even think about it anymore. So, you take all those together, and I was very fortunate that my physician found the cyst anyway, with no help from me. But we have to be aware of what's going on with our body so that we can speak up. And I always say, just write things down. Write things down if something doesn't feel right. And then you have a little bit of a log. And if it's something that continues to happen for 2 weeks, go tell your doctor. Give the nurse a call, and just share with them what's going on. And then when you do have your appointment, you can say, okay, well, actually for 2 weeks, these are the things that I've been dealing with. And that also helps them, give them an insight into what they can do. And again, I'm also a big advocate of second and third opinions. Any doctor would and should tell you that a second and third opinion is totally fine. If nothing else, they want to be backed up that they're telling you the right thing. So don't ever be afraid to get that next opinion. It's just important to focus on your health and to keep asking questions until you get an answer.
Yeah, I like the idea of writing things down because I'm pretty sure I'm wondering if you feel the same way as a cancer survivor. I feel like my anxiety gets the best of me sometimes. So like if I feel a pain in my wrist, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is. So that I have been writing things down because then I can see for myself, okay, this isn't a big problem because it happened and now it's gone. So I don't have to be like sounding the alarm all the time because it's nerve wracking.
It's nerve wracking. I did for a time feel like I became a hypochondriac, and maybe I do kind of tend toward that a little bit. But at this point, I feel like, if something is wrong, I want to know at the earliest possible point, regardless of what that is. Can I solve everything? Can I prevent everything? No. But I want to know at the earliest possible moment.
Yes.
That gives us the best option.
Yes.
The most options.
Yes. Very, very good advice. Well, I appreciate you so much for being here today with me. You brought up so many great points. I just think you're such an inspiration, like I said to you before we hit record. And the fact that you would even take time to speak to little old me on Chemo Coffee Talk says so much about you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I wish you continued health and keep doing what you're doing because you are inspiring so many people.
Oh, thank you so much. You too. Keep doing what you're doing because the more voices that are out there sharing information and making sure people know that they're not alone, the better. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks for joining me today on Chemo Coffee Talk. I hope this conversation left you feeling inspired, uplifted, and a little more connected. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with someone who might need it, and leave a review. It helps me reach more people looking for hope and resilience. And remember, no matter what you're facing, you're never alone. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward.